Hello, this is WOWDLP on your radio dial. I am your host, Carolivia Heron, here with
Ted Macaluso.
Yes, who is the author of The Recall and
Vincent, Theo,
Vincent.
and
I'm
the
sorry,
Fox.
I'm going to say the Big Yellow Taxi. I'm sorry,
Oh.
that's the song we're going to play. Yeah. Yes, I'm having feedback. Are you hearing a feedback?
Not now. I was earlier, but it's gone away.
Okay, I can't function with this. I'm sorry. I'm going to go directly to a song until I fix this. Bear with me. Okay.
In case you haven't been there lately, we have, and the season is back. I mean, it was hotter than winter for a minute, but winter was just on vacation. I'll tell you a story. There used to be an agreement between the seasons. I mean, after a while, they decided to sit down and work it out. And they agreed that they would more or less come and stay about 3 months each, and then they would go to wherever seasons go when they're not where you are. And this would be a cycle, and it would go on all the time. And then one year in America, one of the seasons got mad and decided it was going to stay. Decided that the way things were done there made it feel at home. People were not doing what they were supposed to. I mean, it wasn't the people. It was the people running the sets, you see what I'm saying? There was some kind of vibe there that made it feel like it wasn't leaving. It was just not going to go. But it wasn't in terms of the temperature. It was in terms of the philosophy, the politics, the psychology, the way things were going in those directions. And so for a long time now, where we come from, there has been no spring, and no summer, and no fall. We have been taken over by the season of ice. Very few people recognize it for what it is, although they feel uncomfortable. Very few people recognize the fact that somehow the seasons don't change. I mean, you get acclimated, you get politically acclimated, you get philosophically acclimated, you start to relate everything to the season of ice. And so your dreams become frozen, and your ideas become frozen, and your promises become frozen. It is frozen days and frozen nights. It is frozen aspirations and frozen inspiration. There's something wrong. I mean, 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 we'd like to talk to you about a season that has taken over America. The season is winter. The song is called Winter in America. And from the Indians, welcome to Pilgrims, and to the buffalo who once ruled the plain. Like the vultures circling beneath the dark clouds, looking for the rain. Hey, they've been looking for the rain. Just like the city stagger on the coastline, living in a nation that just can't take much more. Like the forest they buried beneath the highway, never had a chance to grow. never had a chance to go home. And now it's winter. Come on, sing if you know the words. Seems like winter in America. A time when all of the hills done been killed, been betrayed. Say, people know something wrong with everybody ought to know winter. Seems like winter in America. The truth is there ain't nobody fighting because.
Hello, we're back with WOWDLP Tacoma Park, and I'm here with my guest, and I apologize for that interruption there. You were just listening to Gil Scott Heron because this is his birthday month, and I wanted to celebrate his birthday. He doesn't seem to have any songs less than 9 minutes, but I want to give you a taste of some of his work because each week in the month I try to share with you someone from Washington, D.C. who was born in this month. He actually lived in the house on Logan Circle that's a character in my novel, Thereafter Johnny. My character, Johnny, runs from Georgetown to this house on DuPont Circle, the big, beautiful house there in fiction. And so we have that sort of connection together. So, and I again have with me here today Ted Macaluso. I'm so glad to have him. He's one of the winners of the 2018 Washington City Paper Fiction Contest. And the story that won the prize is The Recall. We'll be talking about The Recall today, and he'll be reading that for you, and also talking about his children's book, Vincent, Theo, and the Fox. I want you to know I already got a question in from Janice Green Mailer, and she wants to know if you're still writing songs. Should I ask you that question?
Sure. I'm not really. Not
You're into the
I'm
fiction.
into the literature.
All
and
right.
writing Fiction.
That sounds good to me. Okay, and the engineer Alex is not well today, so I'm the engineer as well as your host, Carol Olivia Heron. The show is Epic City, and of course, glad to be with you. Streaming worldwide at TacomaRadio.org. On the dial at 94.3 FM. You can find us on Facebook under Epic City, on Twitter under Carol Olivia, on the internet at carololivia.com. And after the show, about 48 hours after the show, go to mixcloud.com/Epic City and you can get or listen to the show itself. And another birthday that's important today, although he supposedly didn't live in Washington, D.C., but I guess he lives everywhere where people are great readers. Today is the traditional day of Shakespeare's birthday, 1564 to 1616. They don't actually know exactly the date of his birth, but he was baptized 3 days after this. And since in those days they tended to baptize 3 days after the birthday, traditionally April 23rd has been taken to be his birthday. And I remember when I was in the Girl Scouts many long years ago, we were having a cookout or a camp out, I guess, somewhere out in Maryland, and each of us had to get up and recite a poem. And when it came my turn, I recited this from Midsummer's Night's Dream, the speech of Puck at the end of the play. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend, if you pardon, we will mend. And as I'm an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck, now to escape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long, as the Puck a liar called. So good night unto you all. Give me your hands, if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. You're supposed to clap at the end. That's them asking for applause at the end of the play. So, I remember everybody being surprised that I remembered that. It's one of those times when I had read all the children's books in the house. I went over and got one of my father's books and read A Midsummer Night's Dream because I was born what I thought was midsummer in the middle of July, which was not Midsummer Night. I found out later, but so what? It was midsummer's to me then, and so that was my way of introducing myself to this Shakespearean world with A Midsummer Night's Dream was the first play I read of his. Okay, now I'd like to go directly into your work. The recall, I don't know if you'd like to give an introduction. Would you like to share the work first and then give some background, or how would you like to do it?
Well, this is a story that was in the Washington City paper fiction issue, and they wanted stories that were set in the broad D.C. area, not necessarily D.C. itself, but in the area. And so mine starts out in a business park in Virginia. Should I just read it?
Yes,
yeah.
Why don't you do
Okay. The recall. If you want to stroll in solitude in the D.C. area at night, nothing beats older office parks. My favorite is the Prosperity Business Campus near the Dunloring Metro, a mile from my high-rise. No one is there at 2 a.m., just two-story brick buildings surrounded by empty parking lots and grown trees. A bush-covered chain-link fence hides Interstate 66, and the late-night traffic sounds like waves on a beach. No machine shops polluting the air, no guards, only sodium vapor lamps illuminating curved paths with benches for lunch breaks. That's where I first saw her, sitting on a bench in the business campus at 2 a.m. It was March, and she was the only person I'd seen on my late-night sojourns. She looked like a Victorian novel. White gloves, body covered by an ankle-length floral dress with puffed shoulders, lace collar, veiled hat. She nodded, acknowledging me. "Did your car break down?" I asked. "Need help?" "I'm Jim." "Oh, no. Taking rest period. I work at Embassy." She tilted her head toward the far end of the campus. Her accent was strange, Slavic or Portuguese, almost familiar, but off. "At the Saudi consulate?" I asked. It was adjacent to the business campus. Deputations and consulates are all over the D.C. metro. "The other one." I had never seen another diplomatic building nearby, but let it go. Seeing her, it felt like my world had been invaded, and I was anxious to continue my walk. Next day, though, I took a detour going to work. Sure enough, there was an embassy, a very small, cylindrical building behind the large Saudi edifice. The writing on the sign was strange. It looked like Chinese, but what do I know? As I watched, black SUVs, the ones politicians like, pulled up. One had a NASA logo. That night, she was sitting on the bench again. I mentioned the SUVs. All she said was, "We're advising, but your people believe in luck." She tilted her head and stretched her neck cat-like. "Why do you walk so late?" "My brother and I own a bar. By the time cleanup's done, I just make the last metro. Really, I'm lucky walking so late. After tending bar, I need solitude." I looked at her. "What country are you from?" "You won't have heard of it." She adjusted her dress. It shimmered. "That's impressive, Jim, saving up to start a business." "My brother and me? We never could have saved enough. Used the insurance payout from when Mom died. We were fortunate." "What do you do at the embassy?" "I document culture. For history, yes." We kept meeting over the next 6 months, except, of course, for the bad nights, the polar vortex that sent temperatures below zero in May, the monster storms. But we met a lot, and she was curious about everything. Miley Cyrus, hang gliding. Did I know about permafrost? Would Captain America support or oppose the Second Amendment? The role ocean currents played in the culture of colonial New England. Had I read Coetzee? "I missed you last night, Jim," she said. It was late September. Yesterday had been pleasant. Been looking for a new apartment. I'm subletting a condo where the owners shortchanged the reserve fund for years. Now they have big repairs and my rent is doubling. Time for a new home. I exhaled. I'm lucky there are places nearby. She turned her sinuous neck to look at me straight on. One of her earrings briefly glowed purple. Why do your people dismiss facts and think they'll luck out? Why, Jim? I shrugged. Human nature? We talked about luck versus science and whether to base action on measurement and mathematical models or serendipity and fate. Her body swayed as she abruptly spoke of urban renewal. When apartments get too run down, Jim, your people let developers evict tenants and plow over buildings. I've seen this. Is that what you want? I hadn't seen her angry before. Your movie heroes are saved at the last moment, she continued. Did you know that, Jim? Did you ever think how it shapes your worldview? I wasn't sure what to reply. Both of her earrings were flashing purple. 20 seconds later, they were dark. These are important questions, Jim, she said finally. Will people face facts, pray to a god, toss a coin? What if you can't move to a new apartment? What if you dislike the changes new owners, developers make to your home? I didn't have an answer. It was October when I saw her the last time. I'm glad you came, she said, to say goodbye. They've recalled embassy staff. I'm leaving tonight. There's nothing in the news, I replied. During downtime tending bar, I read the Washington Post. Hadn't seen any diplomatic blow-ups, just the tornadoes wrecking Detroit. Is there a threat of war? War? No, not war. She squeezed my hand, and I went still. She hadn't been wearing white gloves all these nights. Her skin was silk. The planet, it's become unstable. They're sending all non-essential staff home. She leaned in. Few species learn to manage their planets in time. I've gathered so many histories. I stared, slack-jawed. Oh, Jim, not to fear, she continued. We're not like your developers. We don't evict life forms. We only repurpose after a self-induced extinction concludes. She rose, curving her neck to face me. It's not hopeless. Your sunspot cycle is shifting. In a few years, the sun will become cooler for several years. Maybe it will buy your species time. A purple glow shone through the trees that hid her embassy. I watched her lope off into the radiance, earrings glowing amber. She curved her head back. Try to stay lucky, Jim. Yeah, the end.
Boy, I was so surprised by that wonderful ending when you...
Thank you.
The recall, and there was a time I felt hopeless that there would be stories in the United States where a little bit of the fantastic and the unreal would intersect with realism. And
Right.
you've done that. You've given us the fantastic and the real
Thank
together.
you.
And I appreciated that very much.
Yeah.
Thinking about the recall, the whole time I was reading it, I'm thinking, recalled where? Are they going back to Taiwan? Are they
Right.
going back to... And I was trying to think of all the different countries, but then the character couldn't recognize if it was Chinese or not. And I thought, well, he would know if it was Chinese. Even
Yeah.
if he didn't know the language, he would recognize the letters or the symbols, the characters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was very strong for me. We're going to play your Big Yellow Taxi, but can you tell us anything about where that story comes from? Or
Well, I was driving by that business campus every Monday. I'm in a critique group of writers. And so I would see it and I would think about it, but I didn't know what to do. It looked sort of nice late at night with, especially on misty evenings and things like that, because it is an older, the part I was looking at is an older business campus.
yes.
And then I was thinking, well, where would you go to walk? And then I was just sort of letting it sit for a while. And then I was thinking about the environment and basically the terrors of global warming and what we're doing to the planet. And I just had this idea, what you recalled an embassy from an entire planet. You're not just leaving like Lithuania, or some other country. You're evacuating the planet, and
Yes.
and so that sort of got me working on the story, and so that's how it came.
Yeah, yeah. So looking at a spot, and the story rose up out of the ground, it seemed, and enveloped you. Yes, and thinking about that word, and also about some questions that come up in my teaching, the concept of alien, and people say, don't say alien anymore because it sounds so awful to call
Right.
somebody alien. There was a time when alien just meant other,
Yeah,
but now it doesn't. It means something non-human or something more than that.
right.
But now there's a complaint about calling anybody other. That's almost non-human now. You can't call people other. At least that's the beginning.
Yeah,
And I'm wondering, we got to keep looking for a word that separates us from others ever, or will that work? I guess this is one of the questions I'm
yeah.
thinking about.
Well, I actually think you do have separations, and there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing that's wrong is if you treat people badly or differently because of it. But there are differences between people, among people. It's like, and in this case in the story, the woman really is an alien. She's like
Alien in the traditional sense,
an extraterrestrial creature. And so I wouldn't have any problem using that word. You have to have some words for otherness,
Well-
because it's an essential concept to people. People recognize otherness, and the issue for me is what do you do with that, not what do you call it.
Yes.
And because as long as a name hasn't become a pejorative, it works.
Yeah, well, it's one of the questions we have. We keep
Yeah.
running out of words as we mess up one word after
Right.
another. Then we
I know.
go after another one because we do turn some words into pejorative,
Right, we do.
pejorative words. And yet, thinking about evolution in general, we survive because we recognize when something doesn't seem quite the same, and we react differently.
Yeah.
And whether that difference is insulting or not is the question. Is whether
Right.
you say, well, somebody looks different here, or somebody is different, or some landscape is different, and call it other,
Yeah,
and then do you decide to be afraid of it or not?
that's the big thing. Is
Yeah.
if you honor it, that's one thing. If you're afraid of it, that's something very different.
Right. Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah. So I'm gonna you suggested the song "Big Yellow Taxi," which I'm going to
okay.
play for us. That I love that song, and let me go and do it now.
They paved paradise, put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. They took all the trees, put them in a tree museum. And they charge the people $1.50 just to see 'em. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. Hey, farmer, farmer, put away the DDT now. Give me spots on my apples, or leave me the birds and the bees. Please, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. Late last night, I heard the screen door slam, and a big yellow taxi took away my old man. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking that you don't know what you've got till it's gone. We paved paradise, put up a parking lot. We paved paradise, put up a parking lot. We paved paradise, put up a parking lot.
Yes, paved paradise and put up a parking lot. So that's an old good song,
Right.
and unfortunately still fits. And wish it didn't in many ways. And, took all the trees and put them in a tree museum. Charge all the people. It wouldn't be $1.50 now, though. It'd be a lot more than $1.50.
20.
Yeah, just to see them. So yes. Now, I guess I like to start off first with the present, which is you just won this prize for your story. Is this your first story, or is the first one you sent out to the world, or are you lucky, or you worked a long time on it, or
It's
what
the
happened?
first one that got published and won anything. I've sent out other stories, which, like most writers, I'm in the process of
Right.
gathering a big pile of
A
rejections.
rejection, yes,
Yeah.
indeed. I had a wall. I set up a wall
Right.
when I first started sending out
So-
my novel.
So you know, it's been an interesting journey because I never thought I could really write fiction. I did a lot of social science research, fact stuff, and then I thought, well, I can't write a book, and then I wrote a children's book, and then I thought, I can't write stories, but that's what they were doing in the writers groups I was ending up with, and so I just kept trying. I have 3 other stories that are, well, they've each gathered, 5 or 6 rejections, and I'm thinking of how do I change them. One of the nice things is if you keep writing, you keep getting you get to be a better writer.
You get better, yes.
Yeah,
hopefully.
it's just amazing how much you grow.
Yes. Well, yeah, let's hope so with all our struggles.
Right.
Okay, this is time for me to tell you that you're listening to WOWDLP, Tacoma Park. The show is Epic City. I'm your host, Carolivia Haran, speaking with author Ted Macaluso, who's won the one of the fiction prizes for his story, the Recall, which you just heard. And we're going to, in a few minutes, we're going to hear him talk about his children's book, which is
Vincent, Theo, and the Fox.
okay, and it's about Vincent van Gogh. It's an
Yeah.
amazing book. Before I go there, let me give you a few more announcements. Throw Like a Girl is a quest. It's a documentary, a quest to understand why American women are often shut out of baseball. Filmed over a decade, this new documentary follows the Dream Team, a group of trailblazing 12-year-old girls who later encounter difficulty continuing baseball in high school and college. A rough cut of the documentary is showing for one night only, Thursday, May 9th, 7:30 p.m. at the Tacoma Park Community Center Auditorium. On Saturday, May 11th, Tacoma Porch Festival comes alive. Tacoma Park comes alive with the sound of music from many porches and other spots in the Old Town neighborhood. Music runs from 2 until 6 at the 2019 Tacoma Porch Festival, Saturday, May 11th. The info, including maps and performance schedules, is at tacomaporch.net. That's tacomaporch.net. And I hope to see you there. Would also like to remind you to stay tuned to some of my favorite shows. Right after me, Sugar and Spice, Everything Nice with Adelaide and Ruby. Our young women now who started off as teenagers, and now they're growing up and graduating and going off to new worlds and college and so forth. And tomorrow, Borderlines with Milo, Jolly Papa from 1 to 3, Afropop Worldwide with Congolese music from 3 to 4 p.m. tomorrow, and then the DC Roots of Music from 4 to 6 with Wayne. I'm trying to add something new to my list of favorites every week, and this week I want to add at 11 p.m. the Education Trading Post with S. Divine Sankofa, and you may hear about education things that are happening in our town. On Friday, Ballads in the Morning, one of my favorite shows with Becky this week. And coming home from work in the afternoon, evening on Fridays, you want to hear the Groove Line with T. Willie Will. And he's good. And I listen to him, and he's helped me to get home on a Friday. Saturday morning, please listen to Bobby Hill with This Music. On Monday, Clyde will be back. And Clyde is why I met you, by the way.
Yes,
He had you on his show, Ride with Clyde, a few months ago, a few weeks ago. And he'll be back this coming Monday from 9 to 11, followed by DMV Underground with Cardo. And I hope you will listen in to all of that. Again, we're listening to WOWD LP, Epic City, and Ted Macaluso is our guest today, my guest today. I'd like to go on and talk about this amazing this children's book, which introduces children, indeed introduces me. There's so many paintings I've never seen before.
Right.
It's Vincent, Theo, and the Fox, a mischievous adventure through the paintings of Vincent van Gogh.
Right.
Now, would you like to tell us a little background for your story before we go into it? Or
Sure. The story was basically for my son. He used to like for me to read things or to make up stories and read things, and he was sick. He had some very bad asthma. He had to sit at the table and be nebulized, and he was insisting that I read to him. And the only thing on the table anywhere nearby was the catalog from a Van Gogh exhibit that had been at the National
Gallery, yes.
Yeah, it was a great exhibit, and so we had the catalog. And I said, that's not a book. I can't read that. And my mother was visiting, and she just laid down the law, as mothers will do, even when their kids are grown, and insisted I read it to him. And so I had to make something up. And so I flipped to a page. It was The Harvest, which is the picture that opens the book. And I just thought, well, what do I do with this? And I thought, well, okay, Mark's young, so it has to be a kid. And I thought about Vincent and his brother when they were young and what they might do, and that they were talking, watching this. And then to make anything happen, they had to chase something. And so I made up a fox. And they wanted to rescue the fox. And they chased it through all of Van Gogh, not all, but about 30 of Van Gogh's paintings. And so I made up a story. I turned the pictures into a story, basically.
Yes.
And it didn't come out perfectly at first. I did that for him, but then after a while, I thought, oh, this would be a good book, and so went back and started changing and making it into something that actually worked.
Yeah, that was more cohesive.
Right.
Yes. And it's extremely impressive, and I'm sorry I didn't have it beforehand. I could have put at least the cover of it up on the ad I sent out, because these are some amazing paintings. As I told you, I had not seen some of these, and I thought I'd seen a lot of Van Gogh, but I haven't seen these. And perhaps you certainly don't want to read the whole text, but I don't know if is there a passage you'd like to share before we?
I could do the opening. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me hand it to you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and go to wherever you go online or wherever and look at this. These reproductions are so well done.
Yeah.
I'm truly impressed because it's. Usually books with that many pictures are like $100 or something. And
the technology has gotten very good. Anyway, so I said it starts out with a picture called The Harvest, and I say that Vincent and his young brother Theo like to walk, and they sat there and they were wondering what they wanted to be when they grow up. And Vincent said he wanted to be maybe a teacher, or a minister like their father. And Theo points out, the only time I really see you happy is when you're drawing. And before Vincent could answer, the fox, and they see him go into a cart, try to rip open a lunch pail, and they know that the farmer would shoot him, so they say, let's rescue him. And before they get there, the fox runs away.
course.
And so I'll just say the fox ran to a village. He saw a yellow house next to a restaurant. Boy, was he hungry. The fox was young. That morning he had left home, determined to learn his way in the world. I shall be like a human and eat in that restaurant, he thought. The fox went inside. The restaurant was empty. A waiter was setting tables, his back to the fox. Fox had never been in a restaurant. He said to himself, humans must eat the colorful flowers on the tables. The fox jumped on a table and dishes fell to the floor. The waiter turned and gave a loud shout. Vincent and Theo appeared at the door. There he is, yelled Vincent. Get him. Quick as a fox can be, the creature ran between the waiter's legs, through the kitchen and out the back door. A fox should not eat in a restaurant, he thought. And I'll stop there. If you want to find out what happens.
Make him go find the book.
Yeah, you can, it's available on Amazon or the other online places. And it will be in stores in May. I have a
distributor. Got it.
Yeah, a distributor is putting it in 65 stores around the country in May, and there's a mailing going out to try to get more. So it'll be out there, but right now you can get it on Amazon.
Yes. So now I'm going to ask you about being moved by paintings. Because there are a couple of moments I have that I can remember, and I'd like to know. Obviously, you had this on your desk or on your table because you had gone to see the exhibit, which must have been very, very impressive.
Yes.
But can you talk about your thoughts about it?
I've grown up really loving art. My mother used to take my sister and I. We grew up in the suburbs of New York City, and she would take us down to the different museums in New York. And as a kid, I felt like she was just dragging me. I don't want to be here, but it stuck. And so I kept loving art museums, and I love lots of artists. I'm actually writing something about Cezanne right now, and, which is still in the works. It's not out or anything. And so my mother was an artist, it was an interesting childhood. My father was this scientist who was very rational. My mother was this artist who was not rational at all. But I love paintings and art. I love art in general. I mean, music and paintings and everything. Yeah.
One of my brief short stories that I have never published, but I have it at home somewhere.
Right.
Records the time I was at the Louvre, and it was a painting by Cezanne.
Oh, yeah.
One of his still lifes, and I just sort of went in, and there's so much there that is almost overwhelming that you can't really see anything because there's too much. But one of the paintings, a still life, really got my attention because it looked like everything's just about to fall off the table, but not quite. How does he manage to balance it there? And even though your mind says, well, he painted it, it's not really sitting there.
Right.
Your mind is saying, but it's going to fall off, it's going to fall off. And I would look at it from one side, and I went to the other side. And I did that like 4, 5, 6 times until I noticed that everybody else had gone away except one other person, and he was essentially doing the same thing. He was moving from one side and back, and we were going back and forth until finally we noticed each other. And we looked at each other, and it's like, he says to me, marvelous, marvelous, isn't it marvelous? And I was just saying yes, and that still like it stuck with me all those years. I had it on my wall in colleges and various places ever since because it. Yeah. How to get it to balance like that? And what's wrong with me knowing that he doesn't have to balance it because he just painted it? He didn't have to use physics to make it stay up there that way.
But it had to look plausible.
But it was plausible. But you believe that he had the very moment before everything fell over, and he caught it just then. Yeah. And calling it still life when it wasn't still, it was moving all over the place. It was ready to take over the room and so much. So I guess I have that reaction to that painting that stayed with me for a long time, and I was thinking of that even as I looked through your book today. So, and you're from Brooklyn. You know,
I was born there. Yeah.
but is that? I mean, I'm sorry. You don't think you're from Brooklyn. You think you're from Virginia now, right? Or from
Right, yeah,
DMV or whatever.
I've lived in the Washington area since '76. So.
Yes. Well, it was in Brooklyn that I got into the most trouble in my life. With my book Nappy Hair was banned in Brooklyn and started.
Really?
Yes, and caused a big upheaval in my life. But a school teacher tried teaching my book there and didn't work, and for some parents, and it's still banned in New York City, and it's the only place where the ban still holds. It's been unbanned everywhere else. So that's what when I hear Brooklyn, I get I jump back because that's the place where this problem happened. And whenever for a few years, whenever I would go back to talk about things, they would have like the local Brooklyn newspaper would say like she's back, or something like that, something not so complimentary about the troublemaker of Brooklyn.
Wow.
But Brooklyn has so many other wonderful things. Its museums, indeed, you don't even have to go to Manhattan for all of them.
No,
with all the wonderful ones you
Yeah.
do. So I like to go from the present to the past to the future, but maybe we should do your song before we talk about where you're going. So the song you asked me to get for you, let me pull that up here, is, was it I was here?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, let's do that.
Yeah,
Hold on.
Lady Antebellum. Yeah.
Lady Antebellum. I was here, and if I can find my way. Okay.
You won't notice me. I'll be leaving my mark like initials carved in an old oak tree. You wait and see. Maybe I'll write like Twain wrote. Maybe I'll paint like Van Gogh. Cure the common cold. I don't know, but I'm ready to start, 'cause I know in my heart I wanna do something that matters, say something different, something that sets the whole world on its ear. I wanna do something better with the time I've been given, and I wanna try to touch a few hearts in this life, leave nothing less than something that says I was here. I will prove you wrong. If you think I'm all talk, you're in for a shock, 'cause this dream's too strong, and before too long, maybe I'll compose symphonies, maybe I'll fight for world peace, 'cause I know it's my destiny to leave more than a trace of myself in this place. I wanna do something that matters, say something different, something that sets the whole world on its ear. I wanna do something better with the time I've been given, and I wanna try to touch a few hearts in this life and leave nothing less than something that says I was here. And I know that I will do more than just pass through this life. I'll leave nothing less than something that says I was here. I was
Something that matters, something that says I was here.
So I want to leave a trace. Huh? I
Yeah.
wanted to say something was here. I really like that song.
Oh, thank you. It was my wife's idea
Oh, really?
to associate it with Van Gogh.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it fits.
That's a
yeah.
winner. That's a real winner. I sometimes get a little exasperated, although I do understand when people say it's not the goal, it's the journey. And I'm
Right.
thinking, forget that. I want the goal. I want to get the stuff. I want to do something.
Yes.
So to think of life as the journey without considering what is accomplished doesn't actually finally work for me. Maybe that's the artist versus the sociologist type personality.
Right.
I don't know, but that's how it feels to me.
Yeah.
That. So I was going to ask you where the song came from. Has it been a part of your life before now, or is it your wife suggested it? You said.
Oh no, we both knew it.
You knew it beforehand. I didn't know it.
It was actually a song for swim team.
Oh really?
But I was trying to think what would fit Vincent van Gogh. I mean, for the recall, the Joni Mitchell song is perfect.
Oh
yeah.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I thought there were others, but there's so many different things and so many different aspects to Van Gogh's life, and this song captures sort of the striving and the wanting.
Yes, and he said after he figured it out, he lived only 10 years after he figured out
Yeah.
he was a painter, even though
Right.
he had painted a little bit
Yeah.
earlier than that.
Right.
You'll learn all this, by the way, if you look at the book, and the title of it, again, is
Vincent, Theo, and the Fox,
and,
A Mischievous Adventure Through the Paintings of Vincent van Gogh.
Yes, 10 years
Yeah.
after trying many different types
Yeah.
of jobs, and I guess he painted early and then stopped and then went into these other fields.
There's in the epilogue of the book, which is the factual part and talks about Van Gogh. There's a reproduction of a drawing he did when he was 10 years old, which is
Astonishing.
very good. But then he left a lot of it, and it was really, I think he was. I may have my facts wrong. I think he was 27 when he decided that he really was going to be a painter, and he was, and then he did it for the rest of his short life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'd like to talk about the rest of your long life to make a segue.
Yeah.
And I guess in the background, I'm also thinking of people like Keats, died at 24.
Right.
And thought that no one would ever know his name. And if I died at 24, forget leaving something or no trace, nothing.
Yeah.
But the people who leave things and come to fruition early, and those who do it later.
Right.
But anyway, where are you going? Where do you think you're going with your writing, with your life, with your?
Well, like I said before, I'm working on a story about Cezanne, and it's intended to actually help support the visual standards for the arts. It's part of the different STEAM and STEM type stuff. But it's similar to the Vincent and the Fox book because it's an adventure. I take the paintings and turn them into stories, and so it's about 95% ready to go out. I've been working with an art teacher, and he's been very helpful, and also and made me realize that, oh my God, I got more work, and so I've been working on that, and then I have a young adult novel that I'm also Monday I get to talk with an editor about what their reaction to it is. And it's also related to art. It's based. There's this Russian artist, Ivan Ivovsky, who most Americans, I don't think they know.
I've not heard of.
He was the royal painter for the Russian Navy. That people made up phrases about him. I can't remember who it was, but somebody famous made up this phrase, worthy of Ivovsky's brush, to mean something beautiful.
Oh, okay.
And he was in the 19th century, so he was doing these very romantic paintings of the world that existed in the 1850s, and with sailing ships, and he did a lot of stuff around the Black Sea and Istanbul. I had to write a story. It was just, I don't think it's epic.
Well, who
but
knows? You never know.
but it's that sort of spirit of grand adventure.
Yes.
And so that will hopefully come out. I've been working on it for a while, and so I'm working on
That
those.
Black Sea ends up as a secret character in many stories sometimes that you don't expect.
Yeah.
Sort of hiding in the background, and many of the texts that I look at and some that I read. When Marian Anderson was visiting Russia
Uh-huh.
and made a big splash, everybody loved her and had her all wined and
Yeah.
dined her, whatever they did in
Yeah.
those days. They gave her a 2-week vacation on the Black Sea, and she went down there. And it turns out that she fell in love with a man named Kaminsky, and he lived in the next cabin from her on the Black Sea.
Oh, wow.
And this is something that I don't think anybody knew about.
No.
I discovered it because I wrote the libretto for an opera on Marian Anderson. Let Freedom Sing, the story of Marian Anderson. With
Yeah.
Bruce Adolph was a composer, but I wrote the libretto, and in order to write it, I went to look at her papers at the University of Pennsylvania, and lo and behold, almost as if it were a romantic novel, there is a stack of letters tied with a blue ribbon,
Oh, my gosh.
and in Cyrillic letters, she's written his name on the top.
Oh, wow.
Kaminsky in Cyrillic, not in Roman letters.
Yeah.
And all these love letters that he sent to her, and clearly she never answered him because each one of them says, "Why won't you answer me? Why won't you speak to me?" But can you imagine a black singer in the 1930s and 40s coming back from Russia with a white Jewish husband? It could have happened, but it would have. I don't know what it would have happened to her career.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it could have worked, but it's clearly she
Right.
didn't think it was going to work, and she didn't.
Right.
And I read all of them from beginning to end, and she saved them. So she could have
That's-
burned them. She saved them.
Right,
So
that's-
she wanted somebody to know.
That's important.
And that was the Black Sea. So I have this romantic tale I want to tell about,
that's
about
fascinating.
Marian Anderson on the
Yeah.
Black Sea with Kaminsky.
Uh-huh.
And Mary the opera itself has
Yeah.
Kaminsky saying at the door at the window of the
Oh, wow.
cottage on the Black Sea, Marian,
Uh-huh.
just calling to her, but she doesn't answer.
Does
not
wow.
answer.
That's
But it's
powerful.
yeah, and if she didn't care for him at all, the letters wouldn't be there.
Right.
She would not have
Right.
saved him. She wouldn't have tied him with a blue ribbon
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So you see how one story generates another, and
Yes.
it goes on and on.
Yes.
And I believe the story we were mentioning earlier about the Argonautica, the story of Jason and the Golden Fleece, also touches on some of that area. There.
Yeah.
Nobody's quite sure what the map is, but
Right. Some part of the Mediterranean.
yes,
or the
something was in
Aegean.
there
Yeah.
as they were seeking for all these things.
Yeah.
So sounds like you've got some busy work then. It's
Yeah.
wonderful to be meeting with an editor. I remember when the first time I did that after covering a whole wall with
Yeah.
rejection letters. So
Right.
so
Well, we'll see what they say.
no, I hope I'm not. This is not.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. I'm assuming that he wants to talk to you. That it's
Yeah.
about where we go from here.
Right.
Where you go from here. And did you send it out to? How did you find an agent? This is for my.
Oh, no, it's not an agent. It's an
an
editor.
an editor.
Yeah,
Oh, which is
it's
even-
still pre-agent. I actually, it was luck. The woman was, it's a female editor, was offering a contest for her services, and I was one of 3 people who got picked.
Oh, wow.
And so I sent her the first 50 pages of the novel. It's called Aegean, and I'm going to hear what she's saying about that. And
It's called Aegean.
Aegean. Yeah,
Oh,
it starts
the
out
sea?
in the
sea?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Starts out in the Aegean Sea.
Oh, we're in the same
Yeah.
field. It sounds like classics to me.
That's right. Yep.
So this is a young adult novel, or it's something
Yeah,
else.
it's young adult.
It's a young adult novel. You're
Yeah,
thinking.
it's
Okay.
a 16-year-old boy who is a little troubled and decides that he had to get away, and he wants to spend summer vacation on his father's research boat looking for antiquities, actually. And one thing after another happens, and it gets very complicated. But,
of course. Well, otherwise,
Right.
who's interested? Yeah, you don't want it to just be the same old, same old. You want
No.
something different to happen. Well, that
Yeah.
sounds exciting. I look forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
And I think you have a really a good hand for the short story, which I don't. By the way, I don't. I do longer forms, but the short ones don't seem to work as well for me.
Right.
So maybe one day you'll think of it's a collection of some of the vignettes you see as you're passing by these parks, like you did with the one that you created
Right.
and the recall.
Yeah.
That would be good. So how many people are in your critique group?
It varies. Last night, actually, it was yesterday, Monday. Yeah, last night there were actually 8 people. There are about 20 who come on and off regularly. Usually, we have about 5 to 6. There were 8 last night, and what we do, we do 3 works and only 1,500 to 2,000 words, so everybody can read them and critique the same thing. And then the pieces rotate among the group. And so it's we have.
Do you hand them in beforehand? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
2 or 3 days or.
Yeah, they go
some
out 2
time.
or 3 days early,
Yes,
so people you're expected to have read it and have thought
Absolutely.
about it, and then you give your comments to the author, and they have to sit there and take it and listen, and then they get to speak. So
Yes,
it's
of
a
course.
good format.
Yeah. I've been in so many groups, of course, and sometimes, in a group of 8 people, and 7 of them will have it all wrong, but the 8th person will tell you the exact thing you need to know.
Yes.
And sometimes all 8 will help, but I don't.
That's right.
I find it's more like being able to judge the one that's not trying to get you to write their novel, but
Right.
but helping you to write the novel you would write or the story
That's
you
right.
would write.
Yeah.
And then that's the person that you listen to, someone
Yeah.
who can sort of get into your mindset and go that way. Well, I appreciate this time with you and talking all of these things.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, we are coming to the end of our time. I want to say a couple more words about Gil Scott-Heron, who I sort of shortchanged at the beginning, and I was a little bit scattered there. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we
No, just thank you very much for having me. If you're interested in Vincent, Theo, and the Fox, it's on Amazon. You can find it. And the recall was in the fiction issue of the City Paper. It's still online.
Yes, I actually have that site here, and I think I'll just put it up on my Facebook page. It'll be under on Facebook under Epic City, and I'll have the link there so people can actually go and look at the story there. And about Gil Scott-Heron, whose birthday, he was born on April Fool's Day, by the way, April 1st, lived in Washington, D.C. He's better known for his music and lyrics than for his novels, but he's written several novels and other works that I now have to find out. I didn't know this until this came up on the DC Humanities Council has a page of DC authors, and every month they have a new set of everybody born in Washington, DC. That's an author. And 2 things: your house has to be standing where you lived, and you have to be dead. So I hope I'm not there for a long time.
Right, yeah.
And one other thing I have to say about him is that he's considered the grandfather of rap music, and my nickname is the grandmother of hip hop. So I guess we're kin in some way. We have a partially similar name, Gil Scott-Heron and Carolivia Heron. So it's a little bit of a connection there. Okay, so we're going to leave you with "Oh, What a Beautiful City," and let's see here. Okay, I can't see what is coming next. There it is, belongs up there. Okay, and hold on, and thank you for being with us. You'll be hearing more from our authors in the next 2 weeks, and a young dramatist, what shall I say? She's an actress, she's a singer, she's a kid, and she'll be on next week. Her name is Gretchen.